here in February, the middle of winter. Dr. Saunders, you're looking glowing today.
Oh, thank you. This is what's left of my apple.
Wow, you did not leave much for the well, whoever might dig around and look for some scraps in your garbage. Do you have raccoons out there?
Yes, raccoons, but mostly squirrels.
Squirrels, yes. Good stuff. We talked about how eating the whole apple other than the stem is, why not? Just gets a little chewier, more fiber in the middle of the apple. All right, so Leslie is hooking us up with Facebook Live here, I believe. So we're just waiting a little bit to get a few more people to hop on, and looks like we are recording. So excellent. Today we're going to be talking about kidneys and type 2 diabetes. So this should be interesting. We have not really talked in depth about the kidneys before. So that's going to be a fun topic. Kidneys actually plays into my story as an entrepreneur a little bit. So I'm going to also share a little bit. I had a request to tell a little bit more about my story and how I got into this industry. And so it's kind of funny how that happened. So yeah, if you are on the Zoom chat right now, we'd love to hear from you. Just type in the chat, tell us where you're from. I think you can put it, there's a setting to put that to all the panelists and attendees. So hello, Skip. Skip from Texas. Good to see you, Skip. Skip is one of our faithful regulars who we love to hear from and see participate. Let's see, we got a question coming in. Okay, Hillary from Canada, Saskatchewan. All right. Good to see you, Hillary. Let us know how many times, estimated times you've been on this webinar. So I'd love to hear. Skip, I think you've been on almost more than I have, as I've missed a couple. Don from Nashville, welcome, first time. Awesome. All right. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. Janice. Hello, Janice. Greeley, Colorado. First time. Welcome. All right. So looks like we're live, huh, Leslie?
Yeah, we're starting to get some people on Facebook too. So if you are catching us on Facebook, say hello. We want to know where you guys are from there too. I'm trying to manage both at the same time. So if we're asking for questions on our webinar, feel free to type your own questions on Facebook. I'm going to try to get those as well. We usually open up our webinars for some questions for both Joe and Dr. Saunders. So this is a really great opportunity to take advantage of some free information that these guys who've been in this industry for a long time can give. So make sure you say hello on Facebook, and then do us a favor, you guys, share this on your personal pages, because we know there are a lot of people out there who could really, really use this information, who may be struggling with health, or they have a loved one who isn't able to get access to this kind of information. So when you share that, you're helping other people as well. So we really appreciate that. But we're starting to get some people here on Facebook. So hello in the Facebook land.
Hello, and, Facebook.
Yes.
All right.
So yeah.
Cool. So let me just kind of get started here, talking a little bit about the purpose of the diabetes reversal webinar. So this is something that Dr. Saunders and I started about, it's got to be close to 6 months now, and we just wanted to help people more. And so we found a time that works every week for him with his busy schedule. And he calls in usually from Santa Barbara, California area. And but he is our medical advisor that's been with us at Barton Publishing since we met in 2007, I think, and it was probably 2008 that we started working together, or maybe at the end of 2007. So and I mentioned I was going to tell a little bit of my story. So my background is I am more of a business and marketing person. So my college training had nothing to do with medical or health or anything. It was accounting. So I was an accountant for six years, public accountant. I did tax returns and financial statements, and my mom and dad were always into natural remedies. And so, so kind of what happened, my wife and I, we've got 4 boys. They're all teenagers or older now. And after our second son was born, my wife and I were both working full time, and we just felt like we wanted her to be home with the kids, and took a leap of faith. She quit her job, and so no more daycare, but our income got cut in half. And so I had to find other ways to provide for the family. I'll try to make a long story short. I ended up like learning the industry of creating ebooks and selling them on the internet. And so I took a course, and it was talking about how to help people by solving problems and then providing solutions through like ebooks. And so my first product ever was called Get Rid of Ladybugs. It was pest control. Came home from work one day, and our house was full of ladybugs because we lived on a farm, and they're actually called Asian lady beetles. And so I did some research and found a way to help to repel them and get them out of your house, and started my website, and it started working. And so that was pretty cool. And then my mom called me one day, and she said, Joe, my chiropractor just told me about this crazy home remedy he used to dissolve his kidney stones. And I'm like, what? So she told me about it, and it was Coca-Cola and asparagus. And so I did some research, and I bought some other ebooks out there. Nobody was talking about that in their ebooks or whatever. So I found this remedy and just did some searching and found it, and had some people try it, and it was very successful for people. So that kind of launched me into the health world, the natural remedy world, helping share home remedies. And then we had an acid reflux product that solution that my dad found by eating an apple. So tying back into Dr. Saunders eating an apple here, that was what my dad used to basically cure his acid reflux after a 10-year battle. As long as he ate an apple before bed, he didn't have acid reflux all through the night. So that's kind of like the backstory of how I got into this world of natural remedies. Is near and dear to my heart with my mom and dad. And then meeting Dr. Saunders was a huge answer to prayer. We went to a conference together and sat down randomly, I'll say in quotes, for breakfast one morning, and started talking, and kind of realized we both were looking for each other and didn't know it. But yeah, so he's been our medical advisor since 2008, and just become a really close friend. And he's also serves as my family's doctor. Like we have through the phone and just text conversations, emails. He helps answer our questions that we have. Saves us lots of trips to the doctors and things like that. Keeps us healthy and stuff. So it's fun to share Dr. Saunders with everyone in the Barton Publishing community. And so, anyways, that's kind of the quick story of my background, but let's dive into today's topic, which is going to talk about kidneys and type 2 diabetes. And also, just so you know, yeah, we are going to be taking your questions, and feel free to pop them in the chat here, or use the Q&A or comment on Facebook, and we will answer your questions here at some point. But let's welcome Dr. Saunders in here. And Scott, if you could just take it away and talk about the kidneys, that would be great.
Okay, kidneys. This is actually really important because unlike the liver regenerates. So people who damage their liver, the liver can regenerate. So you can like drink alcohol. Every little drink of alcohol kills your liver cells. But then in time, those liver cells will regenerate. So the kidneys, though, once you lose kidney function, it's gone. It doesn't come back. So the kidneys are, in that sense, much more important to save. That's why you have 2 kidneys. And many of you have probably known people who have like donated a kidney, so they only have one kidney left. And that's fine. You can function your whole life on one kidney. Some people are born with only one kidney, and they do just fine all their lives. But it's really important to keep the kidneys functioning well. So what is it about diabetes that messes with the kidneys or or causes kidney problems? There are 3 types of tissues in the body that require a constant supply of sugar. And those are nerve tissue, like the brain and the peripheral nerves, and heart. The heart doesn't store any sugar, and kidneys. All of the other tissues in your body store sugar. So store energy. In some cases it's fat, but they store energy. Those 3 tissues do not store energy. So because your kidneys don't store energy, they are susceptible to a loss of energy. If there's not enough energy around, then they're not going to function. And so when you look at diabetes, the complications of diabetes, what are the 3 problem areas? Well, brain, nervous system. Type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's. We talked about that. The heart. Heart problems go hand in hand with type 2 diabetes, and then the kidneys. The number 1 most common reason for dialysis is type 2 diabetes. So this is not a small problem. It's really huge, and we could prevent all of those with type 2 from having kidney disease if we learn why this happens and how the kidneys function. So what happens is over time, when you have insulin resistance, your ability to bring sugar into the kidney cells so that they can function well declines over time. And as it decreases, then the kidneys will starve. And that's the irony of the whole thing, is these poor kidneys are starving for energy in the midst of this sea of sugar. If people with diabetes, their sugar levels are 2 to 10 times higher than they should be. In the midst of this sea of sugar. Yet at the same time, people with diabetes, their sugar levels they can't bring that sugar into the kidney cells to allow them to function. So they have this block, and the block is a kind of like a blood-brain barrier, because sugar can't get into cells. It requires insulin to get sugar across membranes, and what happens is you become insulin resistant, and that insulin resistance prevents the sugar from getting in. That's why it happens. It's actually really simple. That's why people who have before they ever have high blood sugar, if they have type 2, all they need is insulin resistance. And that insulin resistance will prevent them from getting sugar into the kidney cells, so they can already have kidney disease before they ever have high blood sugar. And this has been noted in multiple studies, and the doctors scratch their head and go, well, why is that? Why should, because we were always told it's the high blood sugar that caused the problem. Yes, but that's indirectly. Directly, it's the insulin resistance. So that's what we need to do to prevent kidney failure, is to prevent insulin resistance, which can happen long before there's any elevation in blood sugar.
Wow. Yeah, that goes back to what you've talked about in previous webinars, is how it is really more so about the insulin resistance than it is the blood sugar. And for whatever reason, it's easier to test for blood sugar. But can you talk more about how is that connected, and why does it take longer for blood sugars to go up in that?
Oh, good question. So if you've seen the diabetes reversal talk that Barton Publishing has, I went into excruciating detail about how this happens. What happens is the cells are cells that are storing sugar. They open up, they bring sugar in, and they bring in more than they use so they can store it. And they store it as glycogen. And those cells are bringing sugar in, and if you're eating all the time, then you're constantly bringing sugar into those cells. Well, at some point, the cells go, whoa, you know, we are really full of sugar, and they block off the insulin receptors from the inside, and it's to not let any more sugar into the cell because they've already got enough, and they're overloaded. That's called insulin resistance, because those cells are literally resisting insulin. They are putting out a protein that says, no, we don't want any more sugar in our cells. And so what happens is now the sugar can't go into the cell, so it stays in the blood, and the blood sugar level goes up. Well, you can start this process of blocking the insulin before your blood sugar goes up. So you can have this insulin resistance, and the blood sugar can still be normal because you're not eating all the time. For example, there's times when the blood sugar can drop down. And so if you measure your blood sugar, it might be pretty close to normal, you know, maybe it's a little over 100, and yeah, that's high, higher than normal, but it's not really high. It's not diabetes level. Diabetes level is like over 160 or over 200. So when you're not seeing those high blood sugars, just this kind of constant low level of diabetes, like a high blood sugar, but not quite normal. Because the cells are getting resistant, and over time they're getting more and more resistant, but you're not yet seeing the blood sugar go up because other cells are bringing the sugar in, or the fat cells are bringing the sugar in and making more fat. So because the fat cells don't get resistant to insulin, they just keep making more fat. They'll bring in, they don't have a stop mechanism. Fat cells will keep growing and growing. You know, that's really interesting. We are born with all of our fat cells. You don't get any extra fat cells. They grow. So fat cells, you know, are either microscopic when they're small, but, you know, we've taken fat cells out that are, you know, each cell has grown into, you know, half an inch or an inch each cell. They just keep getting bigger and bigger. They don't stop. So since they don't have a stop mechanism, you can keep getting fat and you keep your blood sugar low, while all of your other cells are very resistant because they're too full of sugar.
Wow. Well, let's dig into that. How do we avoid insulin resistance? And if we are insulin resistant, how do we change that?
Okay, so in order to do that, you have to know why you make insulin. You make insulin every time you eat. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. Every time you eat, you make insulin. If you eat protein, you make more insulin. If you eat sugar, you make more insulin. The taste of sweet causes you to make more insulin. And so the amount of insulin you make is dependent on what you eat or how many calories you eat. But each time you eat, you do make insulin. So we're told, and this is the big myth of the 1970s, is you have to eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between so that you never have an empty stomach. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that is the single worst advice you can give to anybody. It is, that is the primary cause of diabetes. So people say it's eating sugar. Well, yeah, but you know, we need sugar, and we can get toxic on sugar. Like I said, the cells stop bringing in sugar. But what we really need is time with an empty stomach, because every time you have an empty stomach, your insulin drops down to 0. And that opens up your cells and allows insulin to work better, because there's the cells will use up the energy that they have inside, and they'll go, wait a minute, we need more energy. So then they'll open up the insulin receptors, and that allows the sugar to get into the cells again and brings the blood sugar down to normal and stops insulin resistance. So what we really need is the opposite of what we were told. We were told to, make sure you eat frequent meals, and that, not good advice. The best advice is to eat less frequent meals and have an empty stomach more. And there is an optimal place to be, and we've talked about intermittent fasting, which is a great way to develop insulin sensitivity. The other way to do it, remember, you make more insulin when you eat sugar and almost no insulin when you eat fat. So one of the things that we do is the book that we put together is really a way of causing insulin sensitivity. Yeah, that's it. Causing insulin sensitivity without fasting, and that is to eat fat instead of carbohydrates. So if you eat meals that contain fat, you release a little bit of insulin, but it's actually a very small amount. And over time, the cells will use up the sugar, and they'll open up and they'll go, wait a minute, we need more sugar because you're not eating enough sugar, which is a good thing, because that's what makes you sensitive to the insulin, is when the cells use up their sugar. So when you're not eating sugar, then the cells use it up. And that's why the diabetes solution kit has the, you can eat fat, but you can't eat carbohydrates. So it's really just a low carbohydrate diet to allow time for those cells to use up their extra sugar.
I think something that fascinates me is how quickly, you can begin to see positive improvement, because like type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance can take a long time to develop, like our bodies are resistant, but at some point, like you cross the, it's the tipping point, and things just start going the wrong way. But can you talk about like how quickly somebody can basically reverse their symptoms of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and kind of give us some encouragement and hope? Because I've seen some amazing stories of people that their numbers were so high, but then quickly they can turn things around. So
yeah, that's a great question. So it depends on how much insulin resistance you have, and that's really sort of the key. It's not the same for everyone. Everybody's a little bit different. So I had somebody last week who she was just drinking bone broth so she could start burning her own fat, because she had a lot of extra fat stored on her body. And so she was just drinking broth twice a day, wasn't eating anything, and her blood sugars came down to normal. And she was really high, and she was not controllable with insulin because she had so much insulin resistance that she was injecting insulin, and her blood sugars were still 200, 300, 500. They were really getting up there. So, but within 1 week of just drinking broth and not eating any carbohydrates at all, her blood sugars came down to normal, and she's been normal ever since, but she's still doing that ketogenic diet. But the insulin resistance went away very quickly. Whereas I had somebody else who had been diabetic for 8 years, and she was very overweight, was injecting insulin from her endocrinologist. Her doctor was giving her insulin, and it took her 2 weeks of a ketogenic diet, of no carbohydrate diet, like in the diabetes solution kit. Before she started seeing low blood sugars, she kept asking me, she kept texting me, my blood sugar is still 150, my blood sugar is 140, and it wasn't coming down below 100, which is where we want it to be. until after 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And because there's other things that are involved in that. With some people, because stress hormones, cortisol makes you resistant to insulin. Some people who are under a lot of stress, they'll make a lot of cortisol, and that will worsen their diabetes considerably. It'll make them a lot worse. Whereas people who aren't under a lot of stress, you know, they can totally control it with their diet. So there's other factors involved besides just what you eat.
Yeah. Still, even 2 weeks, like, is not that long of a time. I mean, it's, you know, you have to be diligent about not eating carbohydrates for that long, but to think that you can start to get significant improvement in a lot of areas in that short of time is, I think, gives us some hope. So, yeah, so that's encouraging. And I think most people, you'd probably agree, it's somewhere between a couple days and a couple of weeks on average, right? Just depending on the situation, how long they've been having issues and stuff.
Yes, from a few days to a few weeks. Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, somebody commented about how their doctor, this is from Krish, so thanks for talking about this, Krish. Let's see. A1C reading of 5.9 is regarded as a pre-diabetic state, and the recommendation to many diabetics by primary care physicians is just to keep and maintain your A1C levels below 7. So that means all diabetics will be maintained in a pre-diabetic state. Further, physicians also address that the older a subject is, there's leeway for maintaining a slightly higher A1C level. In that case, will we not develop diabetic complications? So I think this is a good thing to talk about too, because you're not the average traditional medical doctor, and you've got a lot more information and experience in this and have seen success with people. So can you talk about about that, like just how most doctors maybe they just try to keep you in that pre-diabetic state, and they don't maybe believe that you can completely get back into regular blood sugar and insulin sensitivity?
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of important. If you look at it in terms of the big picture, and you say, well, if your hemoglobin A1C is 11 and you get it down to 9, that's good. If you get it down to under 7, like you're a 6, that's better. And if you're, but it's not necessarily best. And so the idea of what the doctors are doing is they're only looking at blood sugar. So even hemoglobin A1C is not an indicator of insulin resistance. It's only an indicator of long-term blood sugar. So what it's measuring is the hemoglobin molecule, which is part of your red blood cell, lasts about 3 months in the body. And during that time, depending on the level of sugar that's in the blood, the sugar molecules will attach onto that red blood cell, onto the hemoglobin molecule. And so over time, if you have high blood sugar, you're going to attach more sugar molecules to that hemoglobin molecule. And they can measure that. So they wash the cells, and then they take out the hemoglobin, and then they look at how much sugar is attached to that hemoglobin. And it gives you sort of a 3-month average of how high your blood sugar has been over the past approximately 3 months, a little less than that. Mm-hmm. So if your hemoglobin A1C is 5.7, then your average blood sugar is somewhere around 120. Ideally, you want your average blood sugar under 100. That's the ideal, perfect place to be, and that would be a hemoglobin A1C under 5. So you would look at 4.5, 4 to 4.9 would be in that range. And I see few people that are under 5. Most people are in the 5 0.0 to 5.5 range that don't have diabetes. And then that 5.7 to 6.3 is the pre-diabetes range. And then over 6.4 and up is considered diabetic. So the hemoglobin A1C, though, is only looking at sugar. It doesn't look at insulin resistance. So it would be much more helpful if you want to look at insulin resistance. You look at your insulin level and your sugar level, and there's an insulin resistance index you can get now. And most labs do it, and it will tell you what your insulin resistance is, and that's much more helpful because that's what's telling you if you're going to get kidney disease. Kidney disease is from insulin resistance, not from hemoglobin A1C. So that's what the question is, a good question, because it indicates the fallacy that we're living under, that if we get our hemoglobin A1C down, then we won't get kidney disease. But that's not the case. Actually, you can have a lower hemoglobin A1C and still have significant insulin resistance and still get kidney disease.
So kidney disease, can you talk about that and explain what that is? Yeah, a little bit more.
Okay. So what happens is there's always a turnover of cells going on. Everywhere in your body, you're turning over, you're making new cells, and old ones are dying and getting wasted and taken out, and then new ones are coming in and filling in the places. But if you don't have enough energy, you don't make new cells. So the cells that are the filter of the kidneys, it's just like a coffee filter, and it's a one layer of cells, and it's the blood comes in and it's filtered through, and the water part of the blood comes out from the filter, and the rest of it, all the cells, like the red blood cells and all, they move on into the veins and they go back into the circulation. But this water, serum actually, that comes out is, it then goes through the filtering process of getting rid of the water-soluble wastes like urea and nitrogen wastes and organic acids and amino acids and all of that. And then the kidney reabsorbs the good stuff that it wants and just lets everything else go. And that's the way the kidney functions. So what happens is these cells that make up the filter, they stop reproducing. So the cells get gaps between them. And it's kind of like somebody comes in the middle of the night and takes a pin and pokes holes in your coffee filter. And then you go and make coffee in the morning and you're going, dang, this stuff's like mud. Why is my coffee like mud? This is horrible. And it's because there's holes in your coffee filter and you couldn't see them because they're just little pinholes. That's kind of what happens in diabetes. When we take the urine test and we see all this protein, extra protein in the urine, that's like the mud. That's like the coffee coming out. Because protein is not supposed to get in through those filters. It's supposed to filter the proteins out and keep them in the blood. So when we're seeing a bunch of protein in the urine, that's because there's holes in the filter of the kidney. And so as that gets worse and worse, then the filter's no good at all. Then it doesn't even filter out the good stuff anymore. And so everything goes through the kidneys and gets wasted, and then you lose the ability for the kidneys to function.
And so then dialysis is required. Can you talk about how dialysis works? I know it's
that's really awesome. Dialysis is an amazing technology, and it's really a mechanical kidney. So it does the same thing. It has these filters, and it takes your blood. So they actually put a big needle, like 14 gauge needle in or bigger, into the vein, and they take a large amount of blood out and they run it through this filter, and the filter is spinning off and keeping the proteins and the cells inside and letting the water and stuff go out. And that's all the waste products, all the urea and all that. And then, so it puts the good stuff back into your body, it mixes with some saline, some salt water, that mixes with salt water, puts it back into your body. And so it's like filtering out, like doing what the kidney does. It's really cool. Well, I mean, unless you have to do it every week or twice a week or 3 times a week. Yeah. The other way of dialysis is called peritoneal dialysis, and that's where they put a solution into your abdomen. They just fill up your belly, around your intestines, that whole area. They fill it up with a hypertonic solution, and that kind of sucks the water out, and then they suck it out. So they put the fluid in, and then it by osmosis, the fluid and stuff collects inside there, and then they suck that out, and that takes a lot of the waste products out of the body. And so people with mild kidney disease can do peritoneal dialysis, but it's not nearly as effective as the other way.
At what point do they not allow you basically to be a candidate for a kidney transplant? Because I have a friend that has to get dialysis 3 times a week, but he's, I don't know if age is a factor. He's around 70 years old, but or is it more the condition of the rest of your body, or like,
Okay. It's based on a lot of different factors of will that kidney provide any benefit to you? So if someone is younger, obviously they're going to live longer, and their body is going to work better, because dialysis is not 100%. It's not as good as a real kidney, because other things happen, like the potassium levels go up and phosphorus levels, and there's certain things you can't eat as much of. You got to stay off proteins. And so while you're on dialysis, you have to be very careful and monitor things closely. And it's not a simple process. Whereas the real kidney is great. It's like, I don't even have to think about it. I got a kidney. So a younger person who doesn't have diabetes, who isn't going to damage the kidney again, is more likely, or a better candidate, considering that there are a limited number of kidneys, and more limitations on, if you're not a good match, because if you're not a good match, then your immune system will kill the kidney that you just got, and then it's no good anyway. So number 1, I guess, is being a match, and number 2 is what is the long-term, the longest term benefit that kidney can give. So if they're looking at who should we give this kidney to, is it going to be this guy that's 70 or this guy that's 33? Well, if all other factors are equal, probably the 33-year-old will get more benefit out of the kidney than the 70-year-old. So age might be a factor.
Okay. Well, so bottom line, as we kind of begin to wrap up here, this has been great information. The moral of the story is we need to protect our kidneys, because once they get damaged, they really, like you said, at the beginning, they don't regenerate their cells. And so, there's 2 ways you need to protect your kidney. 1, don't walk down any dark alleys in a in a place you don't trust. You might wake up with missing a kidney or 2, because they're valuable organs. But number 2, most people really, this is one of the reasons why you want to eat low carb, diet, according to what we teach in the Diabetes Solution Kit. And real quick, Leslie's posted the link here, but bartonwebinar.com is the place where you can see all of our more information. You can register for this webinar. You can get links to our YouTube page. to watch archived recordings of previous webinars and see different topics there. You can join our Facebook page, which is called the 610 Reset, which you want to watch that video as well, where we talk about going to bed at 10 o'clock at night with an empty stomach is so valuable. And then we talk about our products, including the Diabetes Solution Kit. And we have supplements on blood sugar, nerve pain, inflammation, and healthy gut support. So go to bartonwebinar.com for all of that. But let's kind of wrap up, like, just protecting our kidneys and eating low carbohydrate diet, like as a lifestyle. And, you talked about bone broth and fat and that, but I think that's kind of the key for us is to, to eat healthy, to follow, smart eating plans. And then, when you do make mistakes and eat too much, like, there are things that you can do to quickly kind of help repair the damage that's done. One is, well, it's all about really intermittent fasting, and the fastest way to do that is to go to sleep earlier at night on an empty stomach, not to be eating small meals all throughout the day, but to really give your whole body a rest and to let it rebuild and repair itself, because our bodies are amazing, designed amazingly. And so, yeah, I think that's it. Anything to add to that, Scott?
Yeah, two things. So the advantage of the low carb meals or eating few carbohydrates is not that carbohydrates do the damage. That's not the point. The point is it's the insulin resistance that does the damage. And so you're eating low carbohydrate to make your cells more sensitive to insulin, so that you can, so your blood sugar can drop down, so that you can get those ports opened up and let the sugar into the kidneys so the kidneys can function again. The other thing is we are because of dialysis, and people who have kidney damage really shouldn't eat a lot of proteins, that people are under the mistaken assumption that proteins damage the kidneys. Eating protein does not damage your kidneys, okay? I'm gonna repeat that. Eating protein does not damage your kidneys. People who have kidney disease and can't filter out the urea and waste products from protein metabolism need a low protein diet because they can't process proteins well, because they can't get rid of the waste products from proteins. That's why. It has nothing to do with the damage. The proteins don't damage the kidneys. And that's really important to understand, because a lot of people, when they eat a low carbohydrate diet, what are they going to eat more of? Well, fat and protein, right? And then somebody tells them, oh, you can't eat protein because that's bad for your kidneys. It's important that you understand, no, that's not the case. It's the insulin resistance that damages your kidneys. And if you have kidney disease, kidney failure, then you may need a low protein diet. Yes, that's true.
We had a good question from Troy. Hi, Troy. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for submitting questions. There were other questions too. I won't be able to get to all of them today, but appreciate you guys asking them, and we'll store these up for future webinars. But can you talk a little bit about like diet compared to supplements, and like, are there any herbal supplements or vitamins or minerals that help with insulin resistance as well as even affecting the kidney? And then even like talking about his question specifically was, should we focus, I mean, is it mainly the diet, or, what role does synochroma play in all of this?
Okay, excellent question. I am not a proponent, I'm not a believer in supplements. When somebody has a deficiency, then they need that nutrient, they need it. And all of the other supplements might be helps. They might be something like the synochroma. It's something that helps. What does it help do? Well, it helps you be more sensitive to your insulin. And that's what we're looking for, insulin sensitivity. But the bottom line is that the supplement is not the thing. Yeah, yes, most Americans are deficient in chromium. And when you're deficient in chromium, you get insulin resistance much more easily. So yeah, adding chromium is a good idea. And I recommend it for everybody just because I test people, and gosh, almost everybody's deficient in chromium. So, and insulin resistance is a common problem. Like 50% of our American population is insulin resistant. So that being said, the answer is not the supplement. The answer is the diet. It's what you're putting into your body. And then like Joe was just saying, if you could be fasting, every time you fast, you drop that insulin down, you allow the cells to start using up all the sugar that they've been storing for 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And after they've used up all that storage, they're going to open up and go, wow, we need more sugar. And they're going to let more sugar in to their, to the cells and allow normal functioning of your blood sugar. So it's the diet. That's what it is.
Yep. Yeah, great answer. And I think that kind of shows like what makes us unique here at Barton Publishing is we're not just trying to like sell as many supplements as possible and convince people that that's all you need is supplements. And like a lot of times that's what supplement companies will do is like, oh, just take this magic pill and everything will be fine. It's like, no, you really need to address the root cause of the issue here. And it's a multi-layered solution. And so, Synachroma really is a product that it's got 6 ingredients that most people are deficient in. It's vitamin D3 and K2, which is really important, especially in the winter months. It helps to build immunity. I even asked Dr. Saunders yesterday if, you know, the coronavirus that's in the news and stuff, like what can we do to protect ourselves? And it's even like with influenza and different things like that. But he basically said, you know, 50,000 IUs of vitamin D for 3 days, which would be like a vitamin D cocktail bomb, you know, to really boost your immunity. But that's in here, and chromium, like you talked about, vanadium and selenium as well. So, but yeah, like you said, it's all about holistically addressing the source and eating healthy. We have recipes in here. We have a grocery list in here. This book the digital version is less than $20. You can get it on our website listed at bartonwebinar.com, and you can get the printed workbook like I'm holding right here for another $20 plus shipping. So all that, this is just great to have everybody joining us. And Dr. Saunders, thank you again for hopping on and answering these questions and getting into some details on the kidney. This is just great information. And, you know, the more that we can be together and talk and encourage each other and share things that work, I mean, we're gonna continue to see positive outcomes and success stories. And so we're thankful for everybody that joined us today. Come on to our Facebook page. Just love to get people joining us at the 610 Reset. That is linked on our bartonwebinar.com. So hop in on Facebook, say hello in there. We're getting to know people in there. Questions are being answered as well, and we're sharing different things in there. That's a great place to connect. So thanks, everybody. Dr. Saunders, thanks again for joining us. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, next week, looking forward to it again. And so tell your friends, share this on Facebook, share this through email or just word of mouth. We're here to help you guys, and we're just thankful to be a part of reversing diabetes and insulin resistance. So good stuff. Thanks, everyone. Take care. God bless.